Listen into what Virat Kohli said just a short while ago.
मेरे और रोहित के बीच में मैंने पहले भी ये कितनी बार एड्रेस किया आके कि हमारे बीच में कोई भी प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। और ऑनेस्टली मैं पिछले 2 या 2.5 साल से मैं इसको क्लैरिफाई करे जा रहा हूँ रेगुलरली। और मैं थक चुका हूँ इस चीज को क्लैरिफाई कर करके, क्योंकि ये बार बार सवाल मुझसे पूछा जाता है। और मैं आपको एक चीज गारंटी के साथ बोल सकता हूँ कि मेरा कोई भी एक्शन या मेरा कोई भी कम्युनिकेशन कभी भी टीम को नीचे लगाने के लिए नहीं होगा जब तक मैं क्रिकेट खेलूंगा। जब T20 कैप्टनसी को छोड़ने की मैंने पहले बीसीसीआई से कम्युनिकेट किया। सबसे पहले मैंने बीसीसीआई को अप्रोच किया कि मेरा ये पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू है, ये डिसीजन है और इन रीजंस की वजह से मैं ये करना चाहता हूं। तो उसको बहुत एक अच्छे तरीके से रिसीव किया गया। उसमें कोई ऑफेंस नहीं थी, उसमें कोई हेजिटेशन नहीं थी। उसमें मुझे ये नहीं कहा गया था कि आप T20 कैप्टनसी ना छोड़िए, बल्कि उसको बहुत अच्छे से रिसीव किया गया कि बहुत एक प्रोग्रेसिव स्टेप है और सही डायरेक्शन में है। तो उस टाइम मैंने कम्युनिकेट किया था कि जी हाँ, मैं ओडीआई और टेस्ट में कंटिन्यू करना चाहूंगा, अनलेस कि ऑफिस बेयरर्स और सिलेक्टर्स को लगे कि मुझे ये रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं करनी चाहिए। और ये भी मैंने कॉल पे क्लैरिफाई किया था उस टाइम पे। तो मेरा कम्युनिकेशन बीसीसीआई को क्लियर था उस टाइम से कि मैं क्या करना चाहता था। और मैंने ये जैसे बोला कि मैंने ये ऑप्शन भी दिया था कि अगर ऑफिस बेयरर्स और सिलेक्टर्स को लगता है कि मुझे नहीं करना चाहिए तो वो डिसीजन उनके हाथ में है।
I'm now being joined by Rajdeep Sardesai because Rajdeep, you've been also tracking the details, and eventually what came out of this question and answer session was the office bearers that he quoted, the BCCI. And he said, you know, I was told it was a progressive step. I was always available for selection unless they felt I was not responsible enough. What are you picking up from what Virat Kohli said today?
Well, look, clearly what Virat Kohli has said casts a huge question mark on the manner in which the BCCI has handled this entire affair, including the BCCI President Sourav Ganguly. Because the impression we had until now is that the BCCI was in some kind of constant communication with Virat Kohli, and that once he had decided to step down as T20 captain, the BCCI had effectively told him his ODI captaincy would also be over. Now Virat Kohli says that I was contacted just 1.5 hours before the test selection meeting, and at the end of the phone call told by the 5 selectors that I'm no longer the ODI captain. So this seems prima facie, if what Virat Kohli is saying is correct, and there is no reason to disbelieve him at this stage, it appears shoddy and, dare I say, very, very unfortunate. And this is in peace, Pooja, with the way Indian cricket captains, including superstars like Virat Kohli, have been treated in the past. You know, there have been captains who have served Indian cricket for a very long time and then, without being even informed, are suddenly removed from their captaincy. And that seems to have happened to Virat. So I think what it appears is a clear communication breakdown between Virat and the BCCI.
Do you also think, yes,
if there was greater communication?
Rajdeep, do you think that this was unnecessary and avoidable controversy just before the South Africa series, and as you're saying, could and should have been handled better?
Absolutely. Look, Virat Kohli, you could well argue, Pooja, that India needs 2 separate captains. You need a separate white ball captain in Rohit Sharma, and Virat Kohli could stay on as test captain. There was almost an inevitability about that, particularly after our defeat in the T20 World Cup, that you were going to have a new white ball captain. But this could have been communicated. The problem appears to be the lack of communication, the lack of transparency in decision making, the fact that not enough people possibly within the BCCI are empowered to talk to the players, and in this case you're talking to India's biggest cricket superstar. So I think that's where the problem lies, and I think having Sourav Ganguly, a former president who himself was treated very shoddily when he was removed from captaincy, one would have hoped that some channels of constant communication would have been there between the players and the BCCI, and that doesn't seem to have happened. The good news, of course, is that Virat says he's available for the ODI series and says that's media speculation. The bad news is that there is an element of, some bad blood clearly in the manner in which he has been sacked effectively as ODI captain, which I'm sure will stay with him. And is again troubling because it shows that the BCCI needs to professionalize itself when it comes to communication.
And sacking, as you call it, on one hand, and then the speculations also, because he clearly used the word. He said, who's planting these sources and information? Because I never said so. So you need to go ask them. They are not credible. Do you think he's taking a dig at either the BCCI or some of the players? What did you make of that statement when he said it?
Oh, absolutely. You know, we heard yesterday the likes of Azharuddin, another former captain, suggesting that there was a rift in the team between the Virat camp and the Rohit Sharma camp, suggesting that, you know, the two were moving in different directions. The BCCI did nothing to put a lid to those rumors for the last 24 to 48 hours. So, in a way, it is much more about the style of functioning of the Indian Cricket Board that's coming out. And that lends itself to this kind of media speculation, that lends itself to the belief that all is not well in the dressing room. If you had regular interactions between the players and the board, between the players, board and the media, many of these problems would be sorted out. But if you are going to be opaque and not have a clarity, why can't the selectors come and explain why they felt it was necessary to move on from Virat Kohli to Rohit Sharma? Why couldn't they have spoken to him earlier? Why at the last minute through a phone call? All of this is extremely troubling and shows that while Indian cricket has professionalized when it comes to greater money available to the players, the style of functioning of the BCCI in some aspects is still very, very shoddy and amateurish.
Please stay on with me, Rajdeep. A quick question from Vikrant as well. Vikrant, how do we now see the series, both the Test and the ODI, after this? Because Virat Kohli is heading out with the team. How do we see the players right now? If you can explain the squad at this point as well.
Well, the Test team has been announced. They are flying off tomorrow morning, Pooja, and the ODIs will be announced in maybe a week, 10 days from now. Rohit Sharma is the ODI captain. If he's fit, he's going to go. Else, somebody else will lead the side. Like I said, India has never won a Test series in South Africa. The closest we came was in 2010-11 when we drew the series 1-1. We've never won a Test series there. We won a limited overs cricket on the last tour. So we would expect the Indians to be a little better than what they did the last time. India have got good fast bowlers. They've also got batsmen who can score runs, but have not been scoring runs. So the middle order is the tricky part for Indian cricket. Somebody like Cheteshwar Pujara, Rahane, Shreyas Iyer is going to be new. Virat himself hasn't scored runs the last 2 years. So the middle order is going to be a problem. If the middle order can get runs, if India can get, let's say, 325, 350, India might just win the Test series for the first time.
Vikrant, Rajdeep and Rahul, I request you to please stay on with this because the fact that we are doing a special bulletin on this is because cricket is no less than a religion in India. And that is why what Virat Kohli has said, what the BCCI has probably not been able to catch up with, is going to ruffle a lot of feathers. And Rajdeep, would I be correct to say that at this point, the country would not want to see this rift between Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, two top players of the squad, the BCCI, despite everything, not being able to put forth perhaps at least a clear communication, because it reflected very poorly the manner in which Virat Kohli had to elaborate and clarify on all these points?
Absolutely. Look, at the end of the day, both Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma are modern day greats of this game. They've contributed enormously, and I'm sure they have a lot of mutual respect for each other as players. But then when you create this intrigue, when you're not transparent, then it is possible that a certain insecurity builds up. We know, and Vikrant has told us about this earlier, that there were a lot of complaints about the team management during the England tour. Many senior players had complained about the alleged lack of communication within the team. Questions were being raised on Virat's captaincy. Now, all of this needs to be sorted out. All of this needs to be sorted out with the BCCI playing the role of a mediator. But I don't think they have. I don't think that they've got the likes of Virat, Rohit, Ashwin, the senior players, to sit across a table, sort out these issues. You've now got a new coach of the team in Rahul Dravid, who's a very fine man. He too needs to be a bridge builder. My fear is that while there is no smoke without fire, I think we tend to exaggerate the level of differences. I am perfectly confident that Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma can play in the same team as terrific players because they have so much of respect both for each other and for the India cap. So I'm not worried about that. I am worried about the fact that the lack of respect that is shown at times by our board officials for those who play for India. Now, you could argue that this also happened in the way Anil Kumble was removed as coach when Virat was captain, and you'd be right. That was also very shoddily done. You see, Anil Kumble is an all-time great. So is Virat Kohli. We need to ensure that these all-time greats are at least given the respect they deserve. If you've decided to move on from Virat Kohli, you could have explained it to him much earlier. He should have then been prepared for it. And I think all of this could have been handled much more harmoniously without what we saw today. Suddenly Virat Kohli having to break his silence and defend himself.
Rajdeep, please stay on with me. I can see Vikrant raising a point. Vikrant, is there something that you must add? Please, go ahead.
Pooja, like I said earlier as well, this word rift, it is much abused by the media, by the social media. A rift would mean that you are at each other's throat. Rohit never said that. Virat never said that. Yes, there have been differences of opinion in terms of cricket, in terms of how to run the team. And questions were asked of the team management when Virat and Ravi Shastri were the team management. And there were suggestions that there was this communication breakdown within the team. I didn't say that. The media did not say that. There are players who suggested, and you could also see that on the ground. Now, just to blame the BCCI, I would blame the BCCI for the mess in the last 1 week. But remember when Anil Kumble was sacked, it wasn't the BCCI. It was the committee of administrators and those people who the media turned them into legendary figures. It wasn't the BCCI then. But then that time you allowed the players to humiliate a legend as well, Anil Kumble. So I wasn't impressed with the way the BCCI handled this situation the last few days. Yes, they should have sat down Virat, Rohit, like I said, Rahul Dravid is the new coach. And it was the job of the selectors also. Remember, when you take cricketing decisions, it is not the BCCI. It has got to be the selection committee, the 5 selectors that you have. Chetan Sharma, who's the chairman of selection committee, that was his prerogative.
Important,
and it is only the fact that when you change a captain or you don't want to change the captain, can a president have a veto power? I mean, technically, the president is not supposed to influence any selection. And it's not just the rift story that has been coming out. Ravi Shastri, who's come back from the World Cup after his last assignment, has gone on record giving many interviews. Rajdeep also interviewed him. He told Rajdeep that Rohit Sharma is going to be the ideal choice for a one-day captaincy. But there have also been interviews where Ravi Shastri has said that the team given to the team selected for the World Cup wasn't the right one.
I want to continue with this coverage. I think what Virat Kohli has said, how he said it today, how he spoke was also very crucial. I want to stay on, but I want to now toss it to Rajdeep to take it forward, who knows politics and perhaps cricket with as much vigor and experience. So Rajdeep, over to you now. Please take it over for the next few minutes. Thank you.
Pooja, the fact is that our politicians could learn a lesson or two from the BCCI and the way it handles politics. It's unfortunate, as I said, it almost makes the BCCI at times makes our political parties look like kindergarten in the manner in which they deal with players. But to both you, Vikrant and Rahul, you first, let's be honest. Do you believe that that Virat Kohli has reason to feel injured today? Could this have been handled better in your view, Rahul?
Absolutely, absolutely. And he has every reason to feel let down. And he has spoken, if not in as many words, the manner in which he expressed his statements clearly shows that he was not pleased. And Rajdeep, you just mentioned about the Anil Kumble saga when Anil Kumble was chucked out of the Indian team as head coach, and the entire blame went to Virat Kohli, and Virat took that blame. But it was not just Virat Kohli alone who was responsible. It was, in fact, many of the senior players within the Indian team who actually didn't want Anil Kumble to remain as the head coach. And at that time, as Vikrant also mentioned, it was the committee of administrators, and also the people who were trying to make peace between the two was a committee of they had Sachin Tendulkar, Saurav Ganguly, and VVS Lakshman to see what exactly happened. Why couldn't they put their foot down? At this point in time, Saurav Ganguly is the BCCI president. If people think that Virat has been, what has happened with Virat is not correct. Saurav Ganguly is at the helm of affairs at the BCCI, so he could have handled. He is saying that I spoke to Virat Kohli and asked him. I personally called Virat Kohli and told him not to quit T20 captaincy. On the other hand, today Virat Kohli in his press briefing says that he did not receive any call from anybody within the BCCI, their office bearers or selectors, to not to quit T20 captaincy. So definitely, they both are not on the same page, and Virat definitely is disappointed with whatever has transpired in the last couple of weeks.
Vikrant, what could the BCCI have done different in your view? What could they have done? Because now it appears that Virat Kohli claims that the decision to step down from T20 captaincy was endorsed by the BCCI. BCCI supported him, understood him. Once he had done that, what should the BCCI have done in your view?
Rajdeep, I think the BCCI had been trying. There were, like I said, suggestions when India was in England, even though they're still leading the series 2-1. It could be a historic victory for India under Virat Kohli in test matches. I think there were rumours coming out of the camp then. And I think the BCCI at that time got their act together. They asked MS Dhoni to be the mentor for the World Cup, which didn't eventually work out. Because the result didn't work out. Maybe if India had done well, we would have said, oh, it was a masterstroke. Now that India did not do well, we are saying it was a flop idea. I think they realized then that there was this communication breakdown within the team. So the moment Virat quit T20 captaincy, I don't know whether Saurav spoke to him or not. They must have spoken. Whether Saurav called him or Virat called up Saurav to inform him, I'm not privy to that. But I'm sure Virat would have known at that time that even the one-day captaincy would be untenable. At that stage, Virat would have thought, what if India does well in the World Cup? They would never be able to get me sacked for the ODI captaincy. And I think Virat would have been aware of the fact that India might go in with one common white ball captain, which is not logically a wrong thing to do. I mean, whether you want Virat or whether you want Rohit is a cricketing logic which...
but Vikrant, couldn't this have, Virat Kohli seems to suggest that all of this happened in a phone call from the selectors. Surely, he could have, it could have been done before that. No, it did not require, the selectors are being now pushed into a corner also.
No, I think what Virat has said is about the meeting that they had last week. Remember, the test team was to be picked. Virat is the test captain. And he said, I was on the call. We were discussing the test team. At the end of the call, I was told that, oh, listen, so we're replacing you with Rohit as the one-day captain also, which wasn't dignified. And Rahul did a show yesterday, Rajdeep, both me and you were a part of it. We did say the same thing. I mean, this is no way to treat somebody who's done so well for the country as a captain, as a player, and somebody who's still your test captain. So it should have been more dignified. I'm sure when we say BCCI, we've got to be crystal clear about who's responsible for what action. In terms of any cricketing change, in terms of selection, in terms of captaincy, it has got to be the selectors, the 5 selectors. And among them, the chief selector, Chetan Sharma, is supposed to come out and give us the reasons as to why the decision wasn't taken or was taken. He didn't. Of course, it's the BCCI that decides, chalo chodo, rehne do, why do a press conference? They should have done a press conference. Ideally, before the meeting, like I've been saying for a couple of days now, before the meeting, they should have sat Virat. They should have sat down Rohit Sharma. And Rahul Dravid is the central figure. I mean, I would say that Rohit and Virat are not the two protagonists. It is also Rahul Dravid. I mean, when Rahul Dravid joined this team as the coach, was he not aware of who's going to be the captain in which format? Do you think his inputs were not taken? I'm sure his
No,
inputs were taken.
you're making very. You've made a very important point there, Vikrant, about the role also that Rahul Dravid will play. But let's just listen in once again to Virat Kohli at that press conference where he spoke about how he was informed finally that he was no longer the ODI captain.
जब